Hi, Mermaid Junkies. How are you? I hope you're doing well. I am so happy to be back. So, as some of you know, that I was sharing on my social media this morning that I wanted to share a video with you about selfishness. Now, this may be a two-part because I really like to get into the fine-tuning of explaining exactly what transpired to create this disparity in my life and to help me to learn through the lessons of it and understanding what the universe was trying to tell me. And so let me start back to a couple of years ago. And I mean, it won't be a lot, but it was just some little bullet points that I would like to share with you that will help me to explain how I came up with this. Okay, so in life, you know, we always have these particular disparity or, contrasting moments in our lives. Christians call them, trials and tribulations, but I like to say, they're disparity, but it's also this fine-tuning mechanism of, it's like a tool or an instrument of the universe trying to help us to understand and expand through our knowledge and learning, right? Because only life experience teaches. And you can't tell someone enough words or encouragement or, kind of preaching, so to speak, to help someone to understand something in life without them experiencing it themselves. That's what teaches us in life, is life lessons, right? So when I moved back, when I was getting my divorce, and I moved back to live with my parents for a time, I had been practicing the law of attraction probably for 2 years, maybe close to almost 2 years. And I didn't realize that what I'm about to tell you actually was happening until just recently, last month, okay? So, you know how I've shared also with you guys on social media before. I'm sure that if you've seen me post, a lot of times I will post different things of what I'm experiencing in life, and I'll kind of go along with those type of things, and I'll put quotes and things like that. And mine was about my whole thing, and I've shared this with you guys on my YouTube channel before, is that I have always went through life needing to be rescued, either whether it was a spouse or a man, or a spouse, man, you know what I mean, men plural, friends, family, some unknown person. I mean, it just didn't really matter. It was just like I never realized that I was seeking that rescued notion in all aspects of my life. I thought it was just towards men, and then after I met my soulmate, I was like, no, okay, so I finally healed through that experience, and so I no longer need to be rescued, right? Because I rescued myself, and then I met Jeffrey. So I was thinking, okay, so I got that one, right? I wiped that one and checked it off the box. Like, I'm like, oh, okay, I've learned to rescue yourself, and then you don't have to ever worry about trying to feel, you won't need rescued, because if you rescue yourself, that is what the internal need was that you needed to look at, right? Okay, so back up, when I moved with my parents, law of attraction was really working for me. It's always working for me, but especially in the financial area with money. It was very, very abundant at the time. And so even though I was getting a divorce, I walked away from the marriage with nothing but 2 suitcases. I didn't even take my children with me. I know I have 4 children. And so it was really a really eye-opening experience for helping me to understand self-love and self-approval and worthiness and that sort of thing. So I was using focus wheels. How I managed to manifest my soulmate is the same way that I thought, okay, well, so I did that with love, so I'll manifest a great amount of abundance with money, because I've done it with the focus wheel. And if you don't know what focus wheel is, it's an Abraham Hicks teachings, and it's a particular tool that she uses. But anyway, so I thought, okay, well, I'll just use the focus wheel and I'll do this for money, right? And so I was able to get thousands of dollars here and there, and I was getting, work like painting and things like that. And so I was getting paid for that, right? And it was really helpful. And I didn't search for a job, like a 9 to 5 clock-in job. But I was making money, like doing little things, like kind of like using my design degree in that aspect, right? Just painting people's houses, or faux painting their garages to make them look like wood, or just small little things like that. Organizing. Anyway, you get the drift. Okay, so the first experience was I was quote unquote hired from one of my cousins, and she says, hey, would you like to do some work on my kitchen and my dining room / family room, and I will pay you, I will pay you for that. So I was assuming that even though it was a family member, I was expecting to get paid for the job, right? So we went and did a couple of things, like we ran to, IKEA, and I was giving suggestions, and I did measurements and things like that when they weren't home. And so I was just doing like little fine-tuning things, stripping wallpaper, painting, doing the basics. And then, like in design, the basics are like repairing holes, stripping the whole room of any kind of, items like wallpaper, whatever you need to do to prep the room before, because icing on the cake for design is when you get to, make it all come together with the, decorations and the, accoutrements kind of thing, right? So I was giving my opinion on the particular things that were leaning towards the design that both the husband and wife had semi-agreed on, but I just noticed that the job, when the job was done, it was kind of like they didn't want my opinion on the aftermath of it. Do you know what I'm saying? Like they didn't want my opinion on like the coming all together. I suggested a particular type of sofa, a particular type of this and that, but they went and did it, when I said, I wouldn't really do that in a design aspect, which I understand, because I'm not sitting there saying that these were horrible clients, these are horrible people, or anything in that nature. What I'm saying is, this is in the process of me learning a great lesson in life. And so in order to get to the point of the situation, I want to give you the narrative of it. Do you know what I mean? Because there's an accumulation of different things that happen, and it's going to be that way in your life. So I'm just trying to get you to point A to point Z before you have to maybe go through all of this. You might see some particular similarities in your own life and recognize those, and be able to clean your vibration up, or clean the disparity, and gather some more clarity in your life before you have to go through 2 years of what I went through. Does that make sense? Okay. So long story short, I didn't end up getting paid for that job. I was talked about behind my back. I later realized that people, kind of informatives, let me know that I was being gossiped about, and that I wasn't this and that, whatever, so that was fine. Okay, so it's a family member, so that was fine. And I was just like, you know what, I'll just distance myself, and that will be, I just learned from that experience. I probably should have gave her a contract. I should have, had half the money down, just like I would do a normal client that I charge thousands of dollars for. Do you know what I mean? I just didn't, because it was family. Okay, so that's the first story. Second story is, and this is all relating to money too. So the second story is, my brother, one of my brothers, asked me to do some work for him. And he had just purchased a home, moves into the home, and says, hey, would you mind painting and helping me pick out some stuff and whatever. And understandably, he was able, he's a bachelor, so he was able to, pick out the things, and he really did a great job. I mean, he had like a good aesthetic as far as that goes for the design aspect of the house and the way that he wanted it to look. I gave some ideas or whatever, but once again, it was family. So I just assumed that, hey, I'm going to get paid for this, but I didn't do a contract. I just took their word. I just assumed, that I would get paid for the job. So my brother and I are speaking one day, and he had this particular beautiful clawfoot tub, and it's gorgeous. I mean, it's really, really beautiful. And I was walking down the hall, because I was kind of getting towards the end of the job, and I said, I would love to have that tub. And he looked at me and he said, well, this is how it's gonna go. He goes, either I can write you a check for $1,000 or I can give you that tub in the equal amount. So whichever one you want when the job's done. And that was kind of the end of it. So I was assuming like, okay, I mean, as much as it would be cool, we needed to pay a mortgage, life goes on, anyway, so I was like, okay, so I thought about it and reluctantly, I didn't, it wasn't reluctantly. So I didn't think any more about it, right? Because this particular sibling has always we're extremely close. And so after I finished the job, I said, okay, he's like, oh, well, if you want to follow me to mom and dad's house, I'll go ahead and give you some money there. And so, first of all, here's a couple of things. If you are an entrepreneur and you are a business person, and say you are just doing little crafts or something, right? Or, and you're barely just starting to make money, or you're just barely starting to make money on your blog, or you have a degree and you're doing resumes for people. The number one thing to remember in business, especially you young girls, or guys or whatever, but get everything down in writing. Do not ever assume that because it's a friend, a best friend, a relative, a parent, or anything, you always need a paper trail. That's one thing I've learned. Second I've learned is always stand in a business aspect, regardless of whether it's someone close to you or not. It's a perfect stranger. Because if that was a client, I would always get a third or a half down depending on the job, and we would discuss that, and I would draw up a contract. I've always done that with everyone. But I didn't do this with my family. So I'm noticing a commonality here at this point. So this is fast forward, this was back in August, okay? So the first one happened, and then, I just really didn't chalk it up to anything. Just, it was a job that you didn't get paid for. I mean, that happens in business, right? I mean, I've painted paintings and then people are like, they bail on me and don't want it. So that's why now I always get my money up front and then I will commission the piece, because I've had several people do that. But you're always gonna have those kind of things. So that's just normal and that's fine and understandable. So, okay. So let me say that in the process of me and Jeffrey getting married, we have now been married, a little over a year, but we've been together a little over 2 years. So, right? A little over 2 years, I think. Anyway, yeah, I think that's right. So, okay, so what happened was in the process of that time period, I had my car, but Jeffrey didn't have a personal vehicle. So he would always drive a company truck. And I think I shared this with you guys before on another video, and it's also on my blog. I shared the experience of, when you have an upset, that's on my blog too, raquelcarter.com, if you want to go and look at that. When you have an upset, it's actually the universe setting you up. And so this is talking about this particular incident that happened. But it all entails with one another and it intertwines with one another. So in that process of Jeffrey and I dating and then getting engaged and then getting married, my father I guess he fell ill and thought that he had cancer and was going to pass. I'm trying to analyze all of this stuff you guys, and I'm trying to share this with you so that, because I don't want to put anyone on the chopping block. I don't want to make someone feel like they're a piece of shit, you know, nothing like that, because I still love these people. I love their soul. I love everything about them. It's just, I mean, they actually helped me to recognize they were instruments in my learning experience. And if we can get to that point to where we appreciate even those dickheads that screw us over, or those dumb bitches, I know I'm all Victorian and sitting with my rabbit, but I'm using curse words. But anyway, okay, because I'm real and that's how I am, and I'm not going to apologize ever again for being that way. So just know that maybe I should put expletives underneath on the description, because I do curse a lot. I am a cussing mermaid. So, but anyway, so the reason that I wanted to share this is because it's helping to come all together, and me recognizing what I still wasn't getting in life, and it trying to teach me something, and my relationship with financial abundance, right? Like I said, in the process of Jeffrey and I dating, and then us getting engaged and getting married, my father thought that he was going to die. I'm assuming from the things that my husband had told me that my dad said to him privately, that he, you know, if you would just please take care of my daughter, you can take the truck and the lawnmower, because my husband is a gardener, landscaper, right? And just please take care of my daughter. Now, let me preface that I have never once asked for money, except for one time when my ex and I lived in Utah, and that was 16 years ago. We asked for $1,500 because our transmission went out on our Ford Explorer. So I did ask for money then, but other than that, I can't really think of ever a time that we ever asked for money. Now, whereas there's all these mixed emotions, you know what I'm saying? And I know you guys understand this because you all have families, and whether it's, you know, it's not the normal family, you know, maybe it's a grandparent, whatever. I mean, everybody has that parental family dynamic, no matter what it is, but you can somehow relate to me in some aspect, right? So, Jeffrey received this truck. My dad said, you can have this truck, and when it's paid off, there wasn't very much to be owed on it. My mother did the finances. She's always done all the finances. And, you know, Jeffrey was going to receive the title and all that. Well, fast forward, we had the truck. My dad says, hey, Raquel, come get it. And, you know, whatever, which was really cool, because I remember when I did a job, I was doing a job and I was driving, because my dad let me borrow it at this time because he hadn't given it to us yet. And he said, you know, and I remember manifesting that. I said, I would like to have this truck. Well, 11 days later is when my dad called me. And so that's how that all evolved. Well, fast forward, we've had the truck a little over a year. And so, you know, Jeffrey and I are going about our lives, experiencing all these different things. And you know, let me back up one time. Okay, remember the whole situation? I don't know if you guys remember, but I just remembered this was another family member did this to me. I'm not a victim. I'm not playing victim. I'm not saying, oh, woe is me. I'm going to cry puddles because, oh, they hurt me and they did this to me. I mean, it's totally experience that I'm learning from. Once again, I will reiterate that I'm trying to give you an example and a blow-by-blow of how the accumulation of my feelings erupted, and I went apeshit ballistic. So, because I'm a very sensitive person, and I will talk clearly to you on here, but get me in front of someone and I clamor up, because, I mean, I'm just like a clam, because it's very hard for me not to be emotional. I'm highly emotional. I'm the most emotional sign of the entire astrological chart, and it's very difficult. However, I'm learning that this is one of the other things that I need to learn, is to be very straightforward, in your face, kind but firm. And I always like to say, you know, for my Christian friends, it's like Jesus. You know, Jesus was very firm. He stood his ground. He knew what he meant when he was saying things. He didn't apologize for his directness, but he was the most kindest, compassionate person ever. And the reason I'm using him as an example is because he was a mortal and he was on the earth and he experienced different emotions and things like that, just like when he was in the temple. I mean, if you want to go into religious part of it, I'm just saying that I have a lot of religious background, so I understand, and this is how I can try and teach you. You know, because I feel like I'm a teacher from the core of my being, and we all are teachers. And I just want to advocate for the fact that when we have these relationship dilemmas come up, that there's a strategic, healthy way of coming full circle with them instead of going like I did, like me taking, you know, lawsuit action and me doing all these different things. I mean, you know, I could tie the court system up and let me do this, and I'm going to put, you know, a lien on my brother's house because he didn't do the job. I mean, I know how to do all that, but I'm not going to do that because I'm trying to take responsibility for how I've learned in this experience. So rewind around my birthday of last year, my aunt had basically said, you know, she had a home, she had 2 homes or whatever, and she said she was going to sell it to Jeffrey and I for cost. So we were packing the house up, getting the house ready to sell. We were like literally 3 weeks from putting the post in the ground. I had talked to the realtor, she was coming, she had given us a quote, you know, of like what we should put the house up for sale, and she was coming literally in 3 weeks to put the sign in there, in the ground, right? Then my aunt backs out on me and says that she can't do that at all. Like there's no way to even remotely do it, and that she's so sorry and I apologize immensely, and that's just, it's not gonna happen. And so, okay, so that was another. So basically this was 3 times with the truck, my brother, my cousin, my aunt, so no, 4 times that this had started to happen. And so I blew a gasket. I literally blew a gasket, you guys. I mean, I probably cussed my dad for everything he was worth. No, I'm not apologizing for that, but I'm not saying that it's the most, you know, replicable thing to do. But we all do things, we're not super like, hey, yeah, I just did that. You know what I'm saying? But it's like at the same time, you're like, I'm just being honest. And like people go through real emotions and people get pissed off and people get angry and people get upset. But instead of me like just saying, you know what? I'm not gonna, like I told my dad everything that I thought. I said I resented him on the phone because he said, no, I'm taking the truck back. So that's what I'm saying is this was the whole coming to Jesus was around his birthday, which he and Jeffrey had the same birthday. Remember I told you guys that was one of the soulmate things, connections. But he called in August and said he was taking the truck back in October and that we had 2 months to figure it out and get a vehicle. Okay, so I'm just sitting there like dumbfounded, like, are you freaking kidding me already? You're freaking kidding me. Like, this is a freaking joke, right? I mean, and I'm like, anyway, so he went back on his word. So I proceeded to talk to my mother because I thought, okay, well, at least my mother may be able to have some bearing on this particular situation because she's the one that pays the finances, right? And isn't what's yours is mine and mine is yours? Because that's how it's always been for me and my family dynamic of my husband and wife, is that, you know, you pretty much coincide with each other on the aspect of purchases and gifting and buying things and input and output and all that, right? So my mother took care of all the finances. And so I was very upset. And so I said, I need you to step in and put your foot down and say something to Dad because I've never asked for anything. This is one thing. It's not like it was a 2017 vehicle off the lot of a $45,000 vehicle. Do you know what I'm saying? Or a $75,000 vehicle. It was a used truck. It's a lovely truck. Don't get me wrong. I love the baby truck. Like, I apologize to him when he was driving away because it's not his fault. But you know, you guys, I believe in energy. Everything carries energy. So, I spoke to my mother. I went ballistic, like I said. I was very upset because I felt like that at this point, if it would have been my brothers, like they mortgaged their house for my brother's businesses. But me to ask for a truck gifted to my husband so that we could get side jobs and more side jobs and stuff was just too much to handle, right? So I felt like my mom made that decision and she just said, no, I'm not getting involved. And you understand how your dad is. He's known to do this often. Well, he may have been known to do that often, but I have never lived near my parents my entire life since I was 18 years old. I moved away. So I've always been away from my family. So I didn't know. I mean, I knew of my father, you know, trading things here and there. And that's two things that my father always taught me as a little girl is that never be an Indian giver, right? Never give something and then take it back. Like that's the low of the low kind of human being that there is. And never trust a liar and a thief. They're the lowest of the totem pole on humanity, right? So you're sitting there teaching me this particular value in life as far as character goes, but then you're doing the exact same thing, not only to just someone, but your own child that you taught not to do this to. So I was a little bit irate. And so instead of, I looked into the lawsuit and things like that. I could have done a lawsuit. I had the paper trail. I could have probably won it in court, actually. But I just figured, you know what? I think that this is the fourth time, and this has happened with just family as far as money goes, that it's best that I just walk from this situation. Like, now, I don't know what the future holds. I never knew what the future holds, but I'm never going to revert back to the person that I used to be, where I would just be like, the Christian thing to do is forgive them and move on. You know, now, do you think that, because you know what? Getting another truck and it's actually almost brand new off the lot. So, and I'm paying cash for it, by the way. So that's karma. And the other thing is that I no longer have to accept this kind of behavior from other people. It doesn't mean like, I'm shunning you and never gonna talk to you ever again. And it's probably, I would be cordial, but I always do this. I always say, you know what? There's sometimes in life, you guys, that you don't just divorce an ex. You sometimes have to divorce family members. And it doesn't mean divorce. We're always going to be an eternal family. Like every experience, every relationship you've ever had in your entire life, you are always going to have. It's an eternal relationship. So, mind you, I've been divorced. I don't speak to my family. But that doesn't mean that I don't have the best, intentions for them. I want the best for them. I'm going to continue to love them in spite of the fact that I felt hurt, deeply, deeply wounded. And I'm still not completely over it. But I know that like attracts like, good attracts good, bad attracts bad. And so, I don't necessarily say karma, but the universe rewards good people with good shit. And so that is the way that you take disparity and contrast in your life. Or you can say, like my Christian friends, trials and tribulations, and you turn that bitch on its head. Because God loves me to death. God still loves my dad and my aunts and my cousin and my mom to death. I mean, I love them to death. It's just that there's certain standards that, like, if you were, I use this analogy. If I was in the gas station and I was standing behind my brother, my cousin, my dad, my mom, would I want to take them home with me? As far as like communication, or I felt a good vibe from them, or I felt comfortable having a little conversation with them. You know how like if you're in the gas station or something and you're waiting in the line to pay for your gas and someone's in the front of you, or you just start talking, you know, to the person behind you at Walmart or Target, right? Or would you just completely stay silent and never have any interaction with that person because of the energy levels? Do you know what I'm saying? Because if you have good energy, you're only going to attract those highly elevated vibrational people at that same energy level. But if these other people don't have that same energy level, at that time, the alignment's off kilter. So it's kind of like, my Christian friends, it would be like in the scriptures, you know how like it says equally yoked, you're never not equally yoked. That's sort of the metaphor, is what it means. It's universal laws of you can only attract what you're vibrationally at that level of. And so, like I said, I love my family, but I necessarily wouldn't take them to dinner. I wouldn't invite them over for dinner. So you can kind of say, you know, and maybe the future holds something else, I don't know, but I have no sadness or guilt or anything like that. And I also, that's another beautiful thing about when you live the law of attraction, you never have a guilty measure within you, because a lot of times spiritual or like Christianity teaches that you should have guilt and you should feel bad and you should feel, and that is not godlike nature at all. That's completely self-made, man-made laws that try to make you feel that you are less than. God doesn't feel less than. Do you think God's going to come down to my level and go, Raquel, you're being a bitch to your mom, like, okay, I'm going to vibrate right here with you? No, God's going to wait and he's going to guide me up through the anger to say, you know what? When you get to this level of alignment, I'll meet you there, Raquel. But until then, see you later, Raquel. I can't vibrate on that level. I'm not coming down to you, Raquel. You need to come back up, right? So I understand that when I'm in alignment and when I'm out of alignment. And being angry and hating my family and being a victim is not my rule of thumb. And I don't live that way. I never will live that way. I own my shit. I just wish some people would own their shit too. You know what I mean? Like, make shit right. Like, why don't you go through life and make shit right? But that's my own thing, is like, I'm trying to do my best to be my best so that I don't have to go around trying to make amends for everybody, because I don't need to make amends. I'm freaking living high, doing the best I can, loving the hardest that I can, and trying to create love in this world. I mean, that's what makes the world go round. It's so true. It's so like barren and stripped down, but it's so, so true. I mean, the truth is so beyond, right? I mean, it's all about loving yourself and loving others. It's an unconditional characteristic of the human species. And so I was just looking at Oliver, he's totally crashed out. But, you know, so I hope that this served you. I hope that you could recognize what I was trying to teach you in this particular analogies and metaphors of, like, I realized when it was my dad that took the truck back that I was like, okay, what is the universe trying to teach me? This has happened every time, and it's only happened with family. And so what I realized is I have a really negative attachment to money and association with family. And especially it stems from me being bought with love. Like, growing up, first of all, it was, how can my dad buy my love? So that was, and I don't say my mom because she's the polar opposite, but she's a little bit more codependent. And so I became extremely codependent on my ex-husband. And so I had some negative energy there, because that's what you do. You marry your dad. And that's not in a sadistic, sicko way. It's just a psychological truth, is that you use your particular spouse that you marry, right? So my ex, I used him as a reflective of myself with my father. So you put all of that stuff onto your spouse that you never healed and regained self-worth and worthiness of and healed through with those things with your father, or it could be your mother. However it plays out, everyone's so different. But that was what it was. I realized when it hit me when my dad did that I had such a negative connotation with money and family, but most particularly being vengeful and angry. That's what's kept me away from massive abundance, is because I associated abundance with like, you're trying to buy my love. Like, it's a conditional thing. Like, Raquel, do what I want you to do and I'll give you this money. So if I wasn't performing, I wouldn't get the money. If I wasn't performing, I wouldn't get the love. So I attached love and money and conditions together. And where did that come from and stem from? My growth as a young girl. Is that my dad would be on a drunken binge, wanting to go out and party with his friends, and because he needed a shirt ironed, he would pay me $35 just to iron a shirt. So what young kid is gonna go, oh no, I'll just iron it for free? I mean, of course, when that's all you know is like, give me the money, buy me love, and you associate that with it. So I'm associating money with like, if I have money, that means I'm gonna try to buy people. I will probably try to do that myself. Does that make sense? Like, do you see the connection there? Is like, it was so eye-opening and so beautiful of an experience. Like, no, we never want these contrasting moments when it's happening, but freak. I mean, what better way to teach us shit than to recognize, oh my God, I gotta get this shit cleared up. So I've been doing focus wheels out the ass. I've just been really doing my homework. But anyways, so in closing, I promised you guys, so this actually wasn't even about selfishness. I'm gonna do the next video about selfishness, but I posted on my social media several weeks ago that I was going to do a giveaway for my new Facebook fan page. And it's Raquel Margaret Carter, RAQUEL Margaret Carter. I'll put it down in the description. But I picked in the little lottery of who liked my page and who commented, and the person and winner is Trisha Hawkins. I believe that's her last name. She's got the cutest little profile picture, and she's darling, and I love her, and I love all of you guys, but I'm just saying that when I picked it out of the little fishing net, that is who won. So I'm going to send her my little painting that I did for the fall. Hi, Ollie. And I think what I'll do is do another giveaway, because I have a couple of little paintings that I would like to give away. And that is it, I think. But anyway, as always, I hope this video served you. I'm so happy to be back. And I know I've been inconsistent, but I was a freaking mess. And I'm sure you guys can understand that when you don't want to freaking get off the couch. And it really literally wasn't that drastic, because I've learned to take contrast so well. But there's those moments that your energy just sucks balls, and you're like, why do I want to get on there and be like a bitch and scream at the camera and tell all my subscribers, my subs, that I'm like, blah, 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 like it's a tattletale session, because I'm not like that. I want to gather my shit together, figure out what the hell is going on with me emotionally, right? And then figure out what I can do to remedy the situation. And I don't necessarily know that that's not the worst thing in life, is for me to cut people out of my life, because this is the other thing I'm going to realize too, is that I'm recognizing all the people that don't have my best good, highest good, and best good intentions at heart. And so because my book's going to be published in less than 6 months, and I'm on my way up. So, I need to get rid of, the people that do not have my highest and best interests at heart. And I want to be clear and know that, and just, be kind and loving, and still try to work through our particular difficulties, but do it with a sense of class. You know what I mean? Classiness. And I know you're probably like, well, that doesn't sound very classy when you're cussing, but, well, you're judging me, so stop judging me. But anyway, but I just judged you for judging me, so isn't that a catching in the layer, right? But anyway, okay, so I just wanted you to know that I love you, and Trish, I will contact you through Messenger and get your address, and I will mail you that painting. And thank you so much for everyone, and for loving me, and for commenting. You guys are so wonderful and so beautiful, and you're always saying how much you miss me, and you're always sending comments and things like that, and you just make me feel so happy and so good. And I really, really appreciate you, because my YouTube channel has been something that has literally saved my life, especially when I was going through such a hard time in my experience with my divorce and feeling completely and utterly alone in life. And it just really gave me a voice. And so I'm so appreciative of that. And I'm so appreciative of you. And thank you for sticking and swimming along with me. And as always, I'm yours until my next swim. Ciao.